Human saves alien woman from savage boars and whisks her away on his cruiser. The forest on Viridian 9 was exactly what Captain Jack Harlow had been warned about. Dense, misty, and forbidding. Perfect. He'd built his reputation on going where others wouldn't, finding what others couldn't. His cruiser, the Nomad, sliced through the undergrowth with practiced precision, its reinforced hull deflecting branches that would have gutted standard vehicles. Jack adjusted his grip on the controls, feeling the power thrumming beneath him. The cruiser was an extension of himself, responsive, powerful, and damn reliable. Unlike most of the people he'd known. Atmospheric toxicity minimal. Indigenous life forms detected within 50 meters, announced the cruiser's AI in its flat, emotionless voice. Thanks for the update I didn't ask for, Jack muttered, brushing a hand through his short dark hair. His beard itched in the humid air, but he kept his focus on navigating the treacherous terrain. The forest suddenly opened into a small clearing, and Jack instinctively slowed the cruiser. Years of exploration had taught him that unexpected clearings often meant unexpected trouble. He was right. A humanoid figure stood frozen in the center of the clearing, her violet skin almost luminous against the dark forest backdrop. Her silvery white hair cascaded down her back in tangled waves, and strange white markings pulsed on her forehead and cheeks. Her large sapphire eyes were wide with terror. 20 meters behind her, two massive beasts burst through the underbrush. They resembled boars, but these were the size of small shuttlecraft, with thick brown fur and yellow tusks that could easily impale a human. Their small, rage-filled eyes locked onto the woman as they charged. "Holy shit," Jack breathed, gunning the cruiser's engine. He didn't think, he reacted. The cruiser shot forward, kicking up dirt and vegetation as Jack pulled alongside the woman. "Get in!" he shouted over the roar of the engine, extending his hand. For a heartbeat, she hesitated, those alien blue eyes assessing him with surprising clarity, despite her obvious fear. Then the ground trembled beneath the charging boars, and she made her decision. Her hand, five-fingered, like a human's, but with an extra joint, grasped his. Jack pulled her onto the cruiser behind him, feeling her arms wrap around his waist with desperate strength. Her body pressed against his back, trembling but solid. "Hang on!" Jack yelled, twisting the throttle. The cruiser leaped forward just as the first boar reached them, its tusks scraping the rear fender with a screech of metal. Jack weaved through the trees, the woman's grip tightening with every sharp turn. The boars were fast, unnaturally fast for creatures their size, and they pursued with single-minded determination. Their grunts and squeals echoed through the forest, primal and hungry. "They're still coming!" the woman shouted, her voice musical despite the fear lacing it. "Not for long," Jack replied, spotting a ravine ahead. He gunned the engine, pushing the cruiser to its limits. "When I say now, lean left with me." The ravine approached rapidly, a 15-foot gap with a drop that disappeared into mist below. "Now!" Jack shouted, leaning hard to the left as the cruiser hit a natural ramp. The woman moved with him perfectly, as if they'd practiced the maneuver 100 times. The cruiser soared across the ravine, landing hard on the other side. Jack fought for control, the woman's arms like steel bands around his midsection. Behind them, one boar skidded to a stop at the edge, but the other, the larger one, attempted the jump. It fell short, its front hooves scrabbling at the edge before it plummeted into the mist with an enraged squeal. Jack didn't slow down until they were a good 5 kilometers from the ravine. Finally, in a small glade where sunlight filtered through the canopy, he brought the cruiser to a stop. "You okay back there?" he asked, turning slightly to look at his passenger. The woman slowly unwrapped her arms from his waist, and Jack immediately missed their warmth. She slid off the cruiser with a grace that belied her recent terror. "I am unharmed," she said carefully, as if testing each word. "You saved my life. I thank you." Up close, Jack could see that what he'd taken for markings on her face were actually intricate patterns that seemed to glow from beneath her skin. Her jumpsuit, though mud-stained, was clearly of advanced design. "Jack Harlow," he said, extending his hand again, this time in greeting. "Captain of the Nomad. That's my ship, not this little toy." He patted the cruiser affectionately. She looked at his hand, then mimicked the gesture. "I am Lainey Nyberry, formerly of the Celestial Harmony. Her hand was cool in his, her grip firm. "I am in your debt, Captain Harlow." "Just Jack is fine," he replied, suddenly aware of how long they'd been holding hands. He released her and stepped back. "So, Laney, want to tell me why two alien boars the size of small shuttles were trying to turn you into dinner?" Her expression darkened, those sapphire eyes flashing with something that might have been fear or anger. Jack couldn't tell which. "It is complicated," she said finally, "and perhaps not safe to discuss here. Those creatures, you call them boars? They were not hunting for food." "No," Jack raised an eyebrow. "What were they hunting for then?" Laney touched the glowing patterns on her forehead, and for a moment they pulsed brighter. "They were hunting for me," she said simply, "and they will not be the last." Laney's sapphire eyes darted nervously to the forest around them before she stepped closer to Jack. The proximity sent an unexpected jolt through him. Her scent was alien, yet strangely appealing, like exotic spices he couldn't name. "I need your help, Captain," she said, her musical voice dropping to a whisper. She reached into a hidden pocket in her jumpsuit and withdrew a small object that glinted in the filtered sunlight. It was roughly the size of Jack's palm, shaped like a teardrop, with a surface that seemed to shift between solid and liquid. Colors swirled beneath its surface, blues, purples, and golds that reminded Jack of nebulae seen from space. "This is the heart of Viridia," Laney explained, "an artifact of immeasurable power to my people. The Drakari Empire stole it generations ago, using it to enslave my world." Jack raised an eyebrow. "And you stole it back?" A smile flickered across her violet features. "I liberated it. There's a resistance movement. We call ourselves the Harmony Restoration. They're waiting for me to deliver this to our sanctuary moon." She hesitated. "The reward would be substantial, enough to pay off whatever debts a freelance captain might have accumulated." Jack laughed, a short, sharp sound. "That obvious, huh?" "Your cruiser has seen better day," she replied, her eyes twinkling, "though your piloting skills are impressive." There was something in the way she said impressive that made Jack's pulse quicken. He cleared his throat. "Those boars, they were sent by the Drakari," Laney nodded. "Bioengineered trackers. They hunt by sensing the artifact's energy signature." She tucked the heart away. "There will be others. The Drakari have invested considerable resources in keeping my people subjugated." Jack ran a hand through his hair, weighing his options. Helping Laney meant making an enemy of the Drakari Empire, not a decision to take lightly. On the other hand, the promise of a substantial reward was tempting, and there was something about her that made him want to help. Empire be damned. "My ship's about 10 clicks north of here," he said finally. "If we move fast, we can reach it before nightfall." Relief washed over Laney's face. "Thank you, Jack." She stepped even closer, placing a hand on his chest. "My people have a saying, a debt of life can only be repaid with life itself. I am bound to you now." Jack felt heat rise to his face. "That's, not necessary, really. Your human customs are different?" Her head tilted curiously, those sapphire eyes studying him with an intensity that made his mouth go dry. "Now, let's just say we take things a bit slower," Jack replied, acutely aware of her hand still resting on his chest. "Though I'm not complaining about the direction." A smile spread across Laney's face, transforming her from merely beautiful to breathtaking. "I've studied humans. Your species fascinates me, so young compared to most galactic civilizations, yet so adaptable, so resilient." Her fingers traced a pattern on his jacket. "So passionate." Jack swallowed hard. "We have our moments." The cruiser's proximity alarm suddenly chirped, breaking the tension. Jack checked the display. Something's moving through the forest. 2 kilometers in closing. He swung onto the cruiser. "Time to go." Laney climbed on behind him, her arms encircling his waist again. This time, Jack was hyper-aware of her body pressed against his back, her breath warm against his neck. "Hold tight," he said, cutting the engine. They tore through the forest, Jack pushing the cruiser harder than before. Laney clung to him, her cheek resting against his shoulder blade. Each bump and turn pressed them together in ways that made it difficult for Jack to focus solely on driving. Your heart rate has increased, Laney observed, her lips close to his ear. Is it danger that excites you, or something else? Jack nearly drove into a tree. A bit of both, he admitted with a laugh. You're not exactly making it easy to concentrate. Would you prefer I sit differently? Her tone was innocent, but her hand slid slightly lower on his abdomen. Careful, Jack warned, his voice rougher than intended. We crash, and that artifact of yours becomes Drakari property again. Laney laughed, the sound like wind chimes. You won't crash. I've seen how capable your hands are. The double meaning wasn't lost on Jack. This woman was dangerous in ways that had nothing to do with the Empire chasing her. They emerged from the forest into a rocky valley. In the distance, Jack's ship, the Nomad, sat on a flat stretch of ground. It wasn't the newest or prettiest vessel in the galaxy, but it was fast and, more importantly, his. There she is, Jack said with pride. Not much to look at, but she'll outrun anything the Drakari send after us. Laney's arms tightened around him. It's perfect, she murmured, like its captain. As they approached the ship, Jack couldn't help but wonder what he was getting himself into. A beautiful alien woman, a powerful artifact, and an empire that wanted both. But as Laney's hands traced idle patterns across his chest, he found it hard to regret his decision. Some risks were worth taking. As they approached the Nomad, Jack's instincts flared. Something was off. He cut the cruiser's engine, coasting to a silent stop behind a large boulder. What's wrong? Laney whispered, her breath warm against his ear. Jack pointed to a sleek, predatory-looking vessel parked 50 meters from his ship. Its obsidian hull absorbed, rather than reflected, light, a stealth feature that screamed military. Drakari scout ship, he muttered. They work fast. Laney's arms tightened around him. They must have tracked the heart's energy signature. Can you turn it off or something? It doesn't work that way, she said. The heart resonates with living energy. It can't be silenced, only shielded. Jack scanned the area. 2 Drakari soldiers patrolled near his ship, their reptilian features distinct even at this distance. Their scaled armor gleamed dully in the fading light. We need to get to my ship without being spotted, Jack said. Once we're aboard, we can outrun them. Laney nodded against his shoulder. I trust you. Those 3 simple words sent an unexpected warmth through Jack's chest. He pushed the feeling aside, focusing on the problem at hand. There's a maintenance hatch on the underside of the ship, he explained. We'll have to crawl through some tight spaces, but it'll get us in undetected. They abandoned the cruiser behind the boulder and moved on foot, using the rocky terrain for cover. Jack led the way, Laney following so closely he could feel her heat at his back. Each time they paused, her body pressed against his, sending his thoughts in directions that weren't helpful to their current predicament. When they reached the ship's landing struts, Jack pointed to a small panel near the ground. That's our way in. He worked quickly, entering a bypass code that popped the panel open. The maintenance tunnel beyond was barely wide enough for one person. I'll go first, Jack said. Follow right behind me. The tunnel was even tighter than he remembered. Jack crawled forward on his elbows, acutely aware of Laney directly behind him. Her occasional soft grunts of effort did nothing to help his concentration. After what felt like an eternity of uncomfortable crawling, they reached a vertical shaft with ladder rungs. Up we go, Jack whispered. Bridge is 2 levels up. As they climbed, Jack became increasingly aware of their predicament, not just the Drakari outside, but the woman below him. Each time he glanced down, Laney's eyes met his with an intensity that made the confined space seem even smaller. Finally, they reached the bridge. Jack pressed his palm to a scanner, and a panel slid open, allowing them to tumble into the ship proper. Welcome back, Captain, a dry, slightly sardonic voice announced as the lights automatically brightened. I see you brought company. How unexpected. Murphy, Jack sighed, helping Laney to her feet. Meet Laney Naivari. Laney, this is Murphy, the ship's AI. Don't mind his attitude, he's programmed to be an ass. I'm programmed to keep you alive, Captain, Murphy corrected, a task made considerably more difficult by your habit of collecting strays, especially strays being pursued by Drakari military vessels. Laney stepped forward, her head tilted curiously. Your artificial intelligence has quite the personality. A necessity when dealing with Captain Harlow's decision-making, Murphy replied. Speaking of which, there are 2 Drakari soldiers currently inspecting the exterior of this vessel. Shall I activate defense protocols? Jack moved to the pilot's seat. No! Stealth launch. Get us out of atmosphere before they know what's happening. As you wish. Though I calculate a 78% probability that this course of action will result in our deaths or capture, your AI is quite pessimistic, Laney observed. Realistic, Murphy corrected, and concerned about the artifact you're carrying. The energy signature is unlike anything in my databases. Laney's hand went to her pocket. You can detect it? Of course. And if I can, so can the Drakari systems. Captain, I strongly advise, just get us airborne, Murphy, Jack interrupted, fingers flying over the controls. The Nomad hummed to life, its systems powering up in stealth mode. Jack felt the familiar vibration through the deck plates as the engines engaged. In my culture, Laney said suddenly, moving to stand beside his chair, one who saves another's life becomes bonded to them. It is a sacred connection that transcends mere obligation. Her fingers brushed Jack's shoulder. Among my people, such a bond would be sealed physically, a joining of energies. Jack's hands faltered on the controls. You mean, our bodies would commune, she confirmed, her sapphire eyes holding his. The life energy flows between bonded pairs, strengthening both. Captain, Murphy interjected, we are ready for launch. Also, I feel compelled to point out that interspecies mating rituals are rarely compatible and often lead to diplomatic incidents. Nobody asked you, Murphy, Jack growled, feeling heat rise to his face. Laney laughed, the sound like silver bells. Your AI is protective of you. He's a pain in the ass, Jack muttered, but couldn't help smiling. Launch sequence initiated, Murphy announced. Drakari soldiers have detected engine activation. They are returning to their vessel. The Nomad rose smoothly, its stealth systems masking the worst of the launch signature. Jack's hands moved with practiced precision over the controls, guiding the ship upward. They're pursuing, Murphy reported. Drakari vessel launching. Jack grinned at Laney. Now the fun begins. You might want to strap in. As she secured herself in the co-pilot seat, her eyes never left his face. You're enjoying this, she observed with wonder. The danger excites you. It's what humans do best, Jack replied, punching the thrusters as they broke atmosphere. We run toward the fire, not away from it. The stars spread out before them as the Nomad accelerated into space, the Drakari ship a predatory shadow on their tail. Asteroid field ahead, Captain, Murphy announced as the Drakari ship gained on them. Shall I plot a course around it? Jack's eyes gleamed with the reckless confidence that had kept him alive through countless tight spots. Hell no! Take us straight through. Laney gripped her seat as the Nomad plunged into the field of tumbling space rocks. Some were small as fists, others massive as mountains. All were deadly at their current speed. The Drakari vessel is following, Murphy reported. Their ship has superior firepower but less maneuverability. Exactly, Jack grinned, his hands dancing across the controls. The Nomad responded like an extension of his body, weaving between asteroids with mere meters to spare. Laney watched him, fascinated by the calm intensity on his face. You're remarkable, she breathed. Most pilots would avoid such danger. Most pilots aren't human, Jack replied, executing a role that brought them terrifyingly close to a spinning asteroid. We have a knack for turning disadvantages into advantages. Behind them, the Drakari ship fired, its energy beams slicing through space, and Jack juked the Nomad sideways, but one beam grazed their port side. Minor damage to the stabilization system, Murphy reported. Continuing at current speed is inadvisable. When has that ever stopped us? Jack muttered, pushing the ship harder. A massive asteroid loomed ahead. Instead of going around, Jack aimed directly for a narrow fissure running across its surface. Captain, the probability of successful passage is… Save it, Murphy, Jack interrupted, his focus absolute as he threaded the Nomad through the crack with centimeters to spare. The pursuing Drakari ship attempted the same maneuver, but miscalculated. A sickening crunch echoed through space as its wing clipped the asteroid, sending it into an uncontrolled spin. Yes, Jack pumped his fist. That'll slow them down. His victory was short-lived. The ship shuddered violently and warning lights flashed across the console. Stabilizer failure, Murphy announced. We require immediate repairs. Detecting a suitable landing site on Terrace Minor, the third moon of the gas giant ahead. Jack swore under his breath. How long for repairs? Approximately 4 hours, assuming no complications. The Drakari will find us by then, Lainey said, her markings pulsing with anxiety. As if summoned by her words, the communication system chimed. Incoming transmission from the Drakari vessel, Murphy reported. Jack hesitated and then nodded. Put it through. A reptilian face appeared on the view screen. The Drakari commander's scales were a deep emerald, marked with the gold patterns of high rank. His vertical pupils narrowed as he took in Jack and Lainey. Human, he hissed. I am Commander Drex of the Drakari Empire. You have stolen Imperial property. I don't see any Imperial property, Jack replied coolly. Just me and my passenger. Drex's mouth curved in what might have been a smile. The female and the artifacts she carries belong to the Empire. Return them and you will be generously rewarded. 10 million credits transferred to any account you designate. Jack felt Lainey stiffen beside him. 10 million credits would pay off his debts and set him up for life. He could buy a new ship, maybe even a small fleet. And if I decline, he asked, keeping his voice neutral. Then we will take them by force, Drex replied, and you will die painfully. You have 1 hour to decide. The transmission cut off. Silence filled the bridge. Jack guided the Nomad toward Terrace Minor, the barren moon growing larger in the view screen. 10 million credits is a significant sum, Murphy observed, far more than the Resistance could offer. I'm aware of the math, Murphy, Jack snapped. Lainey stood and moved to the window, her back to Jack. You should accept, she said quietly. The Drakari will find us anyway once we land. Jack joined her at the window, studying her profile. You think I'd sell you out for credits? It would be the logical choice. Her voice was resigned. My people have a saying, even the brightest star must bow to gravity. Yeah, well, humans have a saying too. Screw logic. Jack placed a hand on her shoulder, turning her to face him. I'm not handing you over to those reptilian bastards. The landing on Terrace Minor was rough but controlled. Jack set the Nomad down in a crater that offered some concealment from orbital scans. The moon's thin atmosphere meant they could work outside the ship, but only with breathing apparatus. I'll begin repairs, Murphy announced, though I calculate the Drakari will locate us within 2 hours. Then we work fast, Jack said, grabbing his toolkit. Lainey, you stay inside where it's safe. She shook her head. I can help. My people are technologically adept. Outside, the moon's surface was bathed in the eerie light of the gas giant hanging in the sky. Jack and Lainey worked in tandem, her slender fingers surprisingly deft with the unfamiliar human technology. Why didn't you take the deal? She asked as they replaced a damaged stabilizer component. 10 million credits. Jack tightened a bolt before answering. Because some things matter more than money. Such as? He looked up, meeting her sapphire gaze through their helmet visors. Such as not being the kind of man who sells people to empires. Such as doing the right thing, even when it's the hard thing. Lainey's markings pulsed with a warm glow. Humans are fascinating creatures. So young in the galaxy, yet so principled. Not all of us, Jack admitted, but we try. They worked in companionable silence for a while. Jack found himself constantly aware of her movements, the grace with which she handled tools, the way her jumpsuit hugged her form as she bent to examine components. In my culture, Lainey said suddenly, a choice like yours, choosing honor over wealth, would be celebrated with a ritual of devotion. Jack raised an eyebrow. Another bonding ritual? The most significant one, she confirmed, her voice taking on a husky quality even through the comm system. It is said that those who share it become connected, not just in body, but in spirit. Jack's mouth went dry. Sounds intense. It is meant to be. Her eyes held his, unblinking. When we complete these repairs, perhaps I could show you." Before Jack could respond, Murphy's voice cut in over the comms. "Captain, I'm detecting an approaching vessel. Drakari signature." Jack swore. "How long do we have?" 20 minutes at most. "We need more time," Laney said, her hands moving faster over the repairs. Jack made a decision. "Murphy, prepare the ship for emergency launch. We'll finish these repairs and get out of here before they land." As they raced against time, Jack couldn't help but wonder what awaited them if they survived, and what Laney's ritual of devotion might entail. "Final stabilizer connection complete," Laney announced, her voice tense through the comm. "Engine system should be operational now." Jack secured the access panel and glanced at the horizon. A bright flare of light punctured the darkness, the Drakari ship entering the moon's thin atmosphere. "Murphy, status report," Jack demanded, helping Laney gather the tools. "Engines at 87% capacity. Weapon systems online. Shields at 62%, the AI replied. "The Drakari vessel will touch down approximately 1.2 kilometers from our position in 4 minutes. Jack and Laney hurried back to the airlock, the moon's low gravity making their movements bouncy despite the urgency. Once inside, they removed their helmets, and Jack was struck again by Laney's otherworldly beauty. Her violet skin flushed a deeper shade from exertion, her markings pulsing with an inner light that seemed to match her quickened breathing. "We need to launch now," he said, tearing his gaze away and heading for the bridge. Laney followed, her hand brushing his as they moved through the narrow corridor. Even that fleeting contact sent electricity up his arm. "The Drakari are deploying ground forces," Murphy reported as they reached the bridge. 6 soldiers with heavy weapons. "They will reach our position in approximately 7 minutes." Jack slid into the pilot's seat. "Prep for immediate launch." "Launch sequence requires 3 minutes to complete," Murphy replied. "We cannot outrun their ground forces." Jack swore, then turned to Laney. "I need to buy us time. The Nomad has defensive weapons, but someone needs to man them while Murphy handles the launch sequence." Laney's sapphire eyes widened. "You're going to fight them? 6 elite Drakari soldiers?" "Just need to keep them busy for 3 minutes." Jack flashed her a confident grin that belied the knot in his stomach. "Murphy will guide you through the weapons controls." Before she could protest, Jack grabbed his blaster from its compartment and headed for the airlock. He paused at the doorway, looking back at Laney. "If things go sideways, get the heart to your people," he said. "Don't wait for me." Something flashed in her eyes. Determination, fear, and something deeper. "Jack," she began. 3 minutes, he reminded her with a wink, then sealed his helmet and cycled through the airlock. Outside, the barren landscape was illuminated by the glow of the gas giant overhead and the approaching lights of the Drakari ground team. Jack positioned himself behind a rock formation that offered both cover and a clear line of sight to the approaching enemies. "Murphy, give me ship to suit comms," he said. "Connected, Captain," Murphy's voice replied in his helmet. "Laney is at the weapons station. The Drakari are approaching from the northeast, using the crater rim for cover." "Laney, can you hear me?" Jack asked. "Yes," her voice came through, tense but steady. "The weapons are online. I can see them on the sensors." "Good. Wait for my signal, then target the area 50 meters to their right. We want to drive them into the open." Jack watched as 6 armored figures moved with military precision across the lunar landscape. Their scaled armor reflected the starlight, and their movements were fluid despite the low gravity. "Now, Laney," Jack called. The Nomad's laser cannon fired, the beam striking exactly where Jack had indicated. The impact sent moon dust and rock fragments spraying into the air. The Drakari soldiers scattered, breaking formation, exactly as Jack had hoped. He squeezed off 3 quick shots from his blaster, forcing them to dive for cover. "Murphy, launch status?" Jack asked, ducking as return fire peppered his position. 90 seconds to launch capability," the AI replied. "Jack, they're flanking you on the left," Laney warned. Jack rolled right just as energy bolts scorched the ground where he'd been. He fired blindly toward the flanking soldiers, then sprinted to new cover. 60 seconds to launch, Murphy updated. A Drakari soldier appeared suddenly atop the rocks above Jack. He fired upward, catching the alien in the chest. The soldier fell, but not before getting off a shot that grazed Jack's shoulder. Pain flared, hot and sharp. Jack, you're hurt! Laney's voice was frantic in his ear. Just a scratch, he grunted, though the suit's medical readout showed minor tissue damage. Keep them busy. The Nomad's cannons fired again, forcing the remaining Drakari to retreat temporarily. Jack used the opportunity to sprint back toward the ship. 30 seconds to launch, Murphy announced. Jack was halfway to the Nomad when his suit sensors screamed a warning. He dove forward as an explosion rocked the ground behind him. The concussive force sent him tumbling across the lunar surface. Jack! Laney cried. I'm okay, he gasped, struggling to his feet. His helmet visor was cracked and warning lights flashed across his suit display. Almost there. 15 seconds, Murphy counted down. The airlock was just meters away when Jack's leg buckled. A stray shot had hit his suit's knee joint, compromising the seal. Air hissed out, and his oxygen levels began dropping. 10 seconds. Jack dragged himself forward, each movement an agony of determination. 5 seconds. The airlock door slid open, and suddenly Laney was there, in a suit of her own, reaching for him. Their gloved hands clasped, and she pulled him inside with surprising strength. The airlock cycled shut just as Murphy announced, "Launch sequence initiated." The Nomad shuddered as its engines fired at full power. Jack felt the familiar pressure of acceleration as they lifted off, even as Laney helped him remove his damaged helmet. "You're insane," she said, her markings pulsing rapidly with emotion. "Gloriously, brilliantly insane." Jack managed a pained smile. "It's a human thing." They made it to the bridge as the Nomad broke through the moon's thin atmosphere. On the view screen, the Drakari ship was scrambling to pursue. "They will be airborne in 45 seconds, Murphy reported. "Our head start is insufficient for a clean escape." "Then we don't escape clean," Jack said, sliding into the pilot's seat despite his injured shoulder. "We escape dirty. Laney, I need you on weapons again." As the Drakari ship rose from the lunar surface, Jack executed a maneuver that would have been suicidal for most pilots. He cut the main engines and used only the maneuvering thrusters to flip the Nomad 180 degrees, bringing their weapons to bear on the pursuing ship while still moving away from it. "Fire everything we've got at their engine nacelles," he ordered. Laney didn't hesitate. The Nomad's weapons blazed, striking the Drakari ship just as it cleared the surface. Critical systems damaged, the enemy vessel faltered, listing to one side before emergency protocols stabilized it. "Direct hit," Laney exclaimed, her voice filled with exhilaration. Jack grinned through the pain in his shoulder, spinning the Nomad back around and engaging the main engines at full power. "That'll slow them down." Murphy plot a course to the nearest jump point. As the stars streaked past, Laney moved to Jack's side, her eyes shining with something that made his heart race faster than any battle. "You risked your life," she said softly. "For me, for my cause." "Yeah, well," Jack replied, suddenly finding it hard to meet her gaze. "Seemed like the right thing to do." Her cool fingers touched his injured shoulder gently. "Among my people, such courage would be honored with the highest form of the bonding ritual." Jack swallowed hard. "Is that so?" Laney nodded, her markings pulsing with a slow, hypnotic rhythm. "When we are safe, I would show you, if you wish it." The way she looked at him left no doubt about what she was offering. Jack felt a warmth that had nothing to do with his injury spreading through him. "I think I'd like that," he said quietly. Murphy's voice broke the moment. "Captain, we have successfully evaded pursuit. However, I feel compelled to remind you that your shoulder requires medical attention." Jack laughed, wincing as the movement jarred his injury. "Always the mood killer, Murphy." Laney smiled, but her eyes remained intense. "Rest now. Heal. There will be time. After." The promise in her voice made Jack think that perhaps getting shot hadn't been such a bad outcome after all. "That should do it," Jack said, wincing slightly as Laney finished applying the regenerative bandage to his shoulder. The med bay of the Nomad was small but well-equipped, another testament to Jack's preparedness for the unexpected. "Your human physiology heals remarkably quickly," Laney observed, her fingers lingering on his skin longer than strictly necessary. "On my world, such a wound would take days to close." Jack smiled, enjoying her touch. "One of our better features. We break easily, but we fix fast." "Captain," Murphy's voice interrupted, I've detected a transmission from the damaged Drakari vessel. They've called for reinforcements. 3 Imperial cruisers are now converging on this sector. Jack swore under his breath. How long do we have? Approximately 6 hours before the first cruiser arrives. Laney's markings dimmed with concern. The nearest resistance outpost is in the Callisto Nebula, at least 8 hours at maximum speed. Jack stood, testing his injured shoulder. It was sore but functional. Then we need somewhere to hide until we can make a run for it. He moved to the bridge with Laney following close behind. I know these sectors better than most, he said, studying the star chart. There's an uncharted asteroid belt in the Thorn system. Dense enough to mask our signature, but navigable if you know what you're doing. And you do? Laney asked, a hint of teasing in her voice. Jack grinned. I've hidden from worse in tighter spots. As he set the course, Laney moved to stand beside him, close enough that he could feel the warmth radiating from her violet skin. While we wait, she said softly, there are things I should tell you about the heart, about my people. Jack engaged the autopilot and turned to face her. I'm all ears. Laney led him to the small common area adjacent to the bridge. They sat close together on the narrow bench, her knee touching his. My people, the Viridia, were once caretakers of 1,000 worlds, she began. Not conquerors. We believe all life is connected through what we call the cosmic harmony. The heart is both symbol and tool of that connection. She withdrew the artifact from her pocket. In the dim light of the ship, it seemed to pulse with inner life, the colors swirling more vigorously than before. The Drakari invaded our homeworld a century ago. They discovered that the heart could be used to amplify their telepathic abilities, allowing them to control entire populations. They've been using it to subjugate not just my people, but dozens of other species. Jack frowned. And if you get it back to your resistance, we can reverse the process. The heart was never meant to dominate. It was meant to connect, to harmonize. Her sapphire eyes met his. But its power responds to the intent of those who wield it. In the right hands, it could free millions. In the right hands, Jack repeated thoughtfully. Your hands. Laney shook her head, her silver-white hair catching the light. Not just mine. She took his hand, placing it alongside hers on the artifact. The heart responds most powerfully to connection between beings. The moment their hands touched the artifact together, Jack felt a strange warmth spreading up his arm. The colors within the heart swirled faster, brighter. What's happening? He asked, fascinated rather than alarmed. It recognizes the bond forming between us, Laney explained, her markings pulsing in rhythm with the artifact's glow. This is why the bonding ritual is so important to my people. It strengthens our connection to each other and to the heart. Jack found himself drawn to her, the space between them seeming to vibrate with unseen energy. This ritual, how exactly does it work? Laney's free hand came up to touch his face, tracing the line of his jaw. It begins with acknowledgement of the life debt. I owe you my life, Jack Harlow. You don't owe me anything, he said softly. In my culture, such a debt is not a burden, but a gift, she continued, her voice taking on a melodic quality. It is followed by the joining of energies, what your people might call souls. Her face was inches from his now, her breath warm against his lips. The heart pulsed between their joined hand, casting them in a glow that seemed to isolate them from the rest of the universe. And how do we join the energies? Jack asked, his voice rougher than he intended. Laney smiled, her markings brightening. In a way not so different from how humans express their deepest connections, through touch, through the sharing of breath and body. Jack felt his heart racing. That sounds compatible with human customs? I had hoped it might be, she whispered, closing the final distance between them. Their lips met, and Jack was surprised by the sweetness of her, like honey with a hint of spice. The heart flared brighter between their hands, and he felt a strange sensation, as if part of him was flowing into her and part of her into him. When they finally parted, Jack was breathless. That was only the beginning, Laney finished, her eyes luminous. The full ritual is much more involved. The ship suddenly shuddered, breaking the moment. Murphy's voice cut in with characteristic timing. Captain, We've entered the asteroid belt. However, I'm detecting unusual energy readings. The heart appears to be affecting our sensors. Jack reluctantly pulled his attention back to their situation. On the view screen, massive asteroids drifted in a complex dance, some the size of small moons. The heart is responding to our connection, Loney explained, looking at the artifact with wonder. It's growing stronger. Is that good or bad? Jack asked. It depends. In the hands of the Drakari, such power is used to dominate. But between us, she looked at him meaningfully, it could be used to protect, to create. Captain, Murphy interrupted again. The Drakari cruisers have altered course. They appear to be tracking the heart's energy signature, which has increased by 340% in the last 10 minutes. Jack swore. So much for hiding. Laney's expression became determined. There is another way. If we complete the bonding ritual, the heart's power would peak. I could use that surge to mask our signature completely, perhaps even create a false trail for the Drakari to follow. You can do that, Jack asked, impressed. With you, yes. Her hand tightened on his. The connection between us is already stronger than I anticipated. A human and a Viridian? It's unprecedented. Jack considered their options. Hiding was no longer viable. Running would only delay the inevitable. But Laney's suggestion offered a chance if he was willing to take it. How long would this ritual take? He asked, a smile tugging at his lips. Laney matched his smile with one of her own. Long enough to be thoroughly enjoyed, not so long that we'd be caught. Jack stood, pulling her gently to her feet. Murphy, maintain course through the asteroid belt and alert us if the Drakari get within an hour of our position. Understood, Captain, the AI replied. Though I feel compelled to note that your vital signs suggest… Mute audio, Murphy, Jack interrupted. Privacy protocols. As the AI fell silent, Jack turned back to Laney, who was watching him with a mixture of anticipation and amusement. Now, he said, drawing her close, show me this ritual of yours. Jack awoke to the gentle hum of the Nomad's engines and the warm weight of Laney against his chest. Her silver-white hair spilled across his skin, and her markings glowed with a soft, pulsing light that matched the rhythm of her breathing. The heart of Viridia rested between them, its colors swirling lazily, as if satisfied. He'd experienced intimate connections before, but nothing like the bonding ritual. It had been more than physical. For a moment, he'd felt her consciousness brush against his, memories and emotions flowing between them like water. The sensation had been both alien and strangely familiar, as if part of him had always known her. Captain, Murphy's voice came through the comm, mercifully at a lower volume than usual. We are approaching the coordinates of the resistance base. ETA 20 minutes. Laney stirred, her sapphire eyes opening to meet his. Good morning, she murmured, her voice carrying a musical quality he hadn't noticed before. The ritual had changed something in how he perceived her. Morning, he replied, brushing a strand of hair from her face. We're almost there. She smiled, but it faded quickly. I can feel the heart. It's concerned? Jack raised an eyebrow. The artifact has feelings now. It's attuned to the cosmic harmony, she explained, sitting up, and something is disrupting that harmony ahead. They dressed quickly and made their way to the bridge. The Callisto Nebula spread before them, a vast cloud of gas and dust illuminated in shades of purple and blue. Hidden within its swirling depths was the secret base of the Viridian resistance. Murphy, any sign of Drakari ships? Jack asked, sliding into the pilot's seat. Negative, Captain. Our false trail appears to have been effective. However, I am detecting unusual communication patterns from the resistance base. Their security protocols have been altered. Laney frowned, her markings dimming. That's not standard procedure. Something's wrong. Jack studied the sensor readings. Could be nothing. Maybe they changed protocols after you left. Perhaps, she said, but her tone was doubtful. She clutched the heart tighter. We should proceed with caution. As they approached the hidden base, a hollowed-out asteroid concealed within the nebula, Jack noticed the lack of patrol ships. For a resistance headquarters, security seemed surprisingly lax. Incoming transmission, Murphy announced. A face appeared on the view screen, a male Viridian with deep blue skin and markings similar to Laney's, though less intricate. Lani Naivari, he greeted formally. "You have returned, and with the heart." His eyes flickered to Jack. "And a human companion." "Elder Toran," Laney replied with a respectful nod. "This is Captain Jack Harlow. He saved my life and helped me escape the Drakari. The heart is safe because of him." Toran's expression remained neutral. "You will both be welcomed. Proceed to Docking Bay 3. The transmission ended abruptly. "Is it just me, or was he not exactly overjoyed to see you?" Jack asked. Laney's brow furrowed. "Elder Toran is usually more effusive, and he didn't use the proper greeting for a returning heartbearer." Jack's instincts, honed through years of surviving in the galaxy's most dangerous corners, prickled with warning. "We could turn around, find another resistance cell." Laney shook her head. "This is our main base. If something's wrong here..." She didn't finish the thought. The Nomad docked without incident. As they prepared to disembark, Jack checked his blaster and slipped it back up into his boot. "Let me do the talking," Laney said, "but stay close." The docking bay was eerily quiet, with only 2 Viridian guards present. They escorted Jack and Laney through corridors that should have been bustling with activity, but were instead nearly deserted. "Where is everyone?" Laney whispered to one guard. "Gathered in the Great Hall," the guard replied stiffly. "For your return." They were led to a massive chamber carved from the asteroid itself. Dozens of Viridians stood in perfect rows, their faces expressionless, their markings dim. At the far end, Elder Toran sat on a raised platform, and beside him stood Commander Drex of the Drakari. "Welcome home, Laney," Drex said, his reptilian features twisting into what passed for a smile among his kind. "And Captain Harlow, how convenient that you've delivered both the thief and the heart directly to us." Jack's hand moved to his blaster, but Laney gripped his arm. "The base is compromised," she whispered. "They're all under Drakari control." "Not all of us," came a voice from behind them. A small group of Viridians emerged from a side entrance, their markings bright with defiance. "Some of us were shielded when they used the prototype to take over the base." "Prototype?" Laney asked. "A device reverse-engineered from the heart," the rebel explained. "Less powerful, but enough to subjugate those unprepared." Drex sighed dramatically. "A minor inconvenience. Now that we have the real heart, resistance is futile." He extended his scaled hand. "The artifact, if you please. Or we'll start executing your friends one by one." Jack felt Laney tense beside him. The heart pulsed in her hand, its colors swirling faster. "Jack," she whispered, "our bonding, it changed how the heart responds to me. To us. If we can connect again, like during the ritual, I might be able to break the Drakari's control." Jack nodded slightly. "What do you need me to do?" "Touch the heart with me. Think of our connection." As Drex began to lose patience, Jack placed his hand over Laney's, both of them holding the artifact. Immediately, he felt that same rush of energy, the sense of their consciousness intertwining. The heart blazed with light, its colors spinning into a brilliant white glow. "What are you doing?" Drex demanded, taking a step forward. "Guards, stop them!" But the controlled Viridians hesitated, their markings flickering as the heart's energy washed over them. "It's working," Laney breathed. "The heart is breaking the prototype's hold. But I need more power to reach them all." Jack thought of their night together, of the moment their minds had touched, of the fierce protectiveness he felt toward Laney and her people. He poured every ounce of that emotion into their connection. The heart responded with a pulse of energy that rippled outward like a shockwave. The controlled Viridians gasped in unison as their markings flared to life, bright and vibrant once more. "No!" Drex snarled, drawing his weapon. "This is impossible." "That's the thing about humans," Jack said with a grin. "We specialize in the impossible." Freed from control, the Viridians turned on the Drakari soldiers in their midst. Drex fired at Jack and Laney, but a shield of energy from the heart deflected the shot. In the chaos that followed, Jack found himself fighting back-to-back with Laney, her movements perfectly synchronized with his, as if they'd trained together for years. The heart continued to pulse between them, enhancing their coordination, their strength, their speed. When it was over, Drex knelt before them. Disarmed and defeated, his soldiers either captured or fled. "Oh, you've won nothing," the commander spat. The Empire will send more ships, more soldiers. We will reclaim the heart. Jack holstered his blaster. Maybe, but not today. Elder Toran, now free of Drakari control, approached them with wonder in his eyes. The heart has never responded this way before. Your bond with the human, he shook his head in amazement. It has amplified its power beyond our legends. Laney smiled up at Jack. Humans have a way of exceeding expectations. In the days that followed, the resistance regrouped and strengthened. With the heart's enhanced power, they were able to send signals to other subjugated worlds, breaking the Drakari's control one planet at a time. Jack found himself increasingly at home among the Viridians. Their culture, once alien to him, now made a strange kind of sense. Perhaps a result of his bond with Laney, or perhaps simply because he'd found something worth fighting for beyond his next paycheck. One evening, as they stood watching the nebula's swirling colors from an observation deck, Laney turned to him. "The Council has asked me to become the new Heartbearer," she said, "to lead our people in the fight against the Drakari." Jack nodded, trying to ignore the sinking feeling in his chest. "It's where you belong." "Yeah," she agreed, taking his hand. "But the heart works best when there is balance. When there is connection." Her markings pulsed with emotion. "They've asked for you to stay as well." "As my bonded." Jack blinked in surprise. "Me? A human?" Laney laughed, the sound like silver bells. "Who better? You've shown our people what humanity is capable of. Courage, sacrifice, adaptability." She touched his face gently. "And you've shown me that sometimes the most powerful connections cross the boundaries of worlds." Jack pulled her close, feeling the heart pulse between them in harmony with their own heartbeats. "Well, when you put it that way, how could I refuse?" Outside the viewport, the nebula shifted, revealing a patch of clear space where stars shone like possibilities. The Drakari would return, of course. Empires always did. But they would face not just the Viridians, but humanity as well, a force they had clearly underestimated. And that, Jack thought, as he kissed Laney beneath the light of 1,000 stars, would be their biggest mistake.